Cakes come in a wide variety of sizes and shapes. We have almost 60 different types of cakes in inventory. We have a small representative sample of the sizes and shapes here today, ranging from very large cakes with a low profile that are inherently stable, come to smaller cakes that are on the borderline as to whether they are stable or not. And then we have cakes that are inherently unstable and have to be stabilized at every situation. Your job, no matter what cake it is to make sure they do not tip over. What makes a cake inherently stable so that we don't have to add additional stabilization? Well, its footprint is a very important consideration. These cakes have large footprints, a large base. The height of the cake is important. These cakes have a low height, and the weight of the cake is important. So all of these are very stable. They are heavy cakes, a low height, and a big footprint. So as the cakes fire, they tend to move and bounce up and down. These will not tip over no matter what happens. These don't have to be stabilized. These are stable. Here's a little smaller footprint, but it still has a good size. It's a heavy cake, and as you rock it, you can feel that is stable. That's not going to tip over. Now let's move into the gray area. So now we're moving into a size of cake that is a judgment call. If in doubt, stabilize. And these I would stabilize. We have a higher height, a smaller footprint, and the weight isn't so great. So as we move the cake, it's just much easier to make it rock. This one should be stabilized. Same with this cake. Relatively light, smaller footprint, height is up, and we can move that fairly easily. This one, it's lower height, but it's easy to move, so stabilize. Here's a small cake. Actually, it's pretty stable. It's a low height, it's a decent weight, and when we move it, yes, it will move back and forth, but this isn't going to flip over too easily. However, moving into the smallest cakes, these are angle or fan cakes. Smaller footprint than the top, which means that we're top heavy, and small footprint, and it's a lightweight. And as the cake fires on one side, it fires on the other side. It inherently is going to set up a rocking motion. Absolutely has to be stabilized every situation. This one as well, same. And here we have two small vertical cakes. These need to be stabilized. A small footprint, they're light, and as you can see, they can rock quite easily. What about boxes? Do we take the cake out of the box or leave it in the box? Wherever possible, leave the cake in the box. It adds a bit of additional security to the cake and strength. In case there's a malfunction, the cardboard box will help to contain the cake. When you have the flaps on the box, either tape them down or peel the flaps off, but leave the cake in the box because of the added strength of the cardboard. Some cakes will not have a box because they are packed 4 or 2 or 6 cakes per box, and so you'll have to take them out of the box. So you have no choice in this case. But when you do have a choice, leave the cake in the box. So there are several different ways that we can stabilize a cake. In this case, we have used pieces of rebar. We pounded a piece of rebar into the ground on both sides of the cake, and then we've used a good strong gaffer tape along the top, along the bottom, and along the top, and that now is stable. What if you can't pound rebar into the ground because you're on asphalt or a playing field? You can use a piece of plywood. You can use a small piece of plywood for each cake. You can use a large piece of plywood and put several cakes on it. Here we've just used large 6 or 8 inch spikes, and again we have taped on the bottom and on the top, and that is stable. You can take several cakes, small ones, and tape them together. Nothing wrong with that. So here we've taken 3 small cakes, taped them well together at the bottom and at the top, and now that has created a stable platform. Now, I'm showing you that these do rock because they are on unstable grass, so they will rock back and forth, but there's no way that they will ever be able to generate enough movement to actually flip over. And of course, tried and true sandbags. Sandbags on all 4 sides, not just 2 sides. Can't go wrong with sandbags. A little bit more work, but they work just fine. So to take from this is that you have to make a judgment call as to whether the cake needs to be stabilized or not. When in doubt, stabilize the cake. Because at the end of the day, it's your job to make sure it does not tip over. So these are some techniques to stabilize cakes that most definitely are inherently unstable. You may have other ideas, but be safe and make sure that the cakes are stabilized.